thing though, bro. And again, maybe it's me, maybe because maybe I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. They didn't say that Irish people were fighting in the American
No,
Revolution.
no, no,
They
no,
didn't say German people were fighting in the
no.
American Revolution. I mean, I figured it out later on in life, but they didn't grow up and say, they didn't say black people were part of fighting in the American Revolution, right? So what does that say? That says that the American Revolution was fought also by immigrants.
By immigrants, absolutely.
Okay? See, that's the point, Chris. Okay, I get the in debt stuff.
Yeah, yep,
Okay,
yep,
I
yep,
get that. This is the point people don't want to know.
yep,
That it wasn't fought by just Paul Revere and pure white bread.
yep,
It was fought by immigrants
yep.
that came here and fought the American, it was part of fighting the American Revolution to make this country free, to establish a country. People don't want to hear that. That's the issue. We'll discuss race and how it plays a factor, and how we didn't even talk about this topic because we were afraid.
A Black Executive Perspective.
We are coming to you live from the new BEP studio for another thought-provoking episode of a Black Executive Perspective podcast. Safe space where we discuss all matters regarding race, culture, and those uncomfortable topics people tend to avoid. I'm your host, TonyTidbit.
And I'm your co-host, Chris P. Reed, and we're here to tackle the real and the raw and often uncomfortable truths shaping our world. No fluff, no filters, just bold conversations that tackle issues that matter, from power to politics to culture, corporate America. We're breaking it all down live with you every Tuesday, right? Without holding anything back. So let's get into it.
Definitely, let's get into it. So tonight, Chris and I are going to dive into two Flashpoint stories, right? And we talked a little bit about this last week. But the first one is, again, why are people all over the Ken Burns American Revolution documentary and still calling it woke? Because he's telling the truth. It drives me crazy, right? And then obviously we didn't want to talk about this, to be fair, right? But because there's like Keystone cops at the running the administration, running the country, right? So we got to dive into the missiles that hit the drug boat twice, all right, killing survivors in the water, which, to be fair, this can be deemed as war crimes, right?
Absolutely.
And so we're going to dive into it. We're going to talk about this stuff. We want to hear from you too. Look, at the end of the day, this show is only good as you give us feedback, you provide your perspective. We have our perspectives. You may disagree with them. That is totally fine. We're open to hearing all perspectives, okay, to be honest. So join into the conversation. Let's make this a family conversation. And let's get into it. So what's your thoughts, partner? Tell me how you doing. First, before we get into it, how was your Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving was good. The food was good. It's always, good. Thanksgiving is the most violent holiday of note because families always beefing and going at it and things of that nature. So if you can
Okay.
survive a Thanksgiving, what I'm saying? That's always a key component.
But
But
you have
it
to,
was
yeah,
it was
yeah.
civil. It was civil and good, like you said, at the Thanksgiving table. Aunt Jenny, Uncle Joe. We don't say that. We don't do that. I had to have a couple of those moments, but it was cool.
Yeah, bro. So with any type of holidays when you have family around, right?
Hmm.
And I'm a
Hmm.
big Thanksgiving person, right? It's one of my
Hmm.
it is my favorite holiday because it is about family and giving thanks, no matter what your circumstances. However, for it to be a thankful situation, you have to put time limits
Yes, sir.
on how long family can be around, even if it's at the dinner table, right?
Absolutely.
You got to put a time limit
Absolutely.
on it because, after a while, especially if people start partaking in the spirits,
The
then you
libations.
going to
Yes,
have,
sir.
oh,
Yes,
bro,
sir.
you got to have
Yes, sir.
every single, and I remember your daddy said, and, I just, oh, next thing you know, you can't, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that deal with this. So look, let's
Absolutely.
dive into, bro, I want to talk about the American Revolution, the documentary that Ken Burns did,
Burns.
right?
Absolutely.
And, number one, have you watched it yet, man?
Yeah, yeah. I got a chance to
Okay.
check it out.
Buddy, have you watched all six
Not in
episodes?
totality. No, I have not
Okay, so
checked
to
it
be
out in
honest with you,
totality.
I'm still on episode 4, right?
Okay.
And so I
Okay.
take my time. I put the closed caption on it. I rewind and back up if I miss something. And for me,
Hmm.
I've learned so much, right? of, you know, of the American Revolution, but not just, let's be fair here. There's you as a kid growing up in Detroit, Michigan, you hear about it, Crispus, the brother, he first one gets
Crispus
shot.
Attucks. Yep.
Okay.
Crispus
Hear
Attucks.
that, right? He first one gets shot, Boston Tea Party. Okay. 5 people get shot, right? Then, taxation without no representation. That's the famous line that you always remember. George Washington, going across the Delaware, right? Stroke on Christmas night,
Mm-hmm.
right? You hear about Paul Revere, the British are coming, right? Lexington, Concord, and you probably get a little bit more history if you live in Massachusetts, to be fair, okay? Bunker Hill, stuff to that nature, right? But to be honest, as far as I know, as far as my from my educational piece, you don't get a lot outside of that, right? 4th of July, it was signed, but to be fair, they fought the war for like 8 years. Okay, most people don't know that, right? They think we declared independence, but I don't mean we were free. Okay, to be fair, right? So there's a lot, but I've learned so much, man, and all the different nuances, and brother fight. It was like our first civil war. To be honest, you don't hear that. Okay, because you had loyalists that didn't want to break off, right? You don't hear none of that. You don't hear none of that. Okay, and they go. I mean, and this ain't a movie. This ain't, they got actors, Bradley Cooper playing somebody and this and that. These are historians going through and diving deep into it, right? Which I think everybody would find fascinating. Everybody would want that type of, granularity, okay, in terms of, oh shit, I never knew. I didn't know about the Stamp Act. I didn't know about all the things, that went into it. I didn't know about, that Native Americans actually some of the Native American tribes was fighting with the British. Didn't know that. Okay, there's a ton of stuff, all right? So you want to understand how the country was built, all the little nuances that went into it, all these type things, right? Didn't know New York was taken, it was occupied, right? So again, but now you have people, it's woke because they're going past the stuff we just got finished talking about. They're going past Bunker Hill. They're going past Paul Revere. They're going deeper, I should say. They're going deeper in George Washington, going across the Delaware, saying stroke, all right, and standing in a muscular, for a picture. They're going deeper than that, and they're providing real history, documented, not made up, documented, that's happened. And at the end of the day, people mad saying that it's woke because they're telling the truth. And I got a couple of, look, I want to hear your thoughts, but I'm going to play a couple of clips to show you why they're calling it woke and why they don't want people to know the truth. But let me hear your thoughts real fast, though, bro.
I think as a historian, formerly educated, history is often inconvenient and it's written by the victors, right? And so, unfortunately, when you have a situation where you've infringed upon marginalized people or the people that have been conquered, you don't want to tell the dirty laundry parts, right? You don't want to tell the politics behind. What you were talking about was a triumphant, we felt infringed upon as Americans or as people, colonists, and the 13 colonies who were separate decided to unify and unite, which is what we should be doing as United States. They decided to unite and push back, and then they pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, and farmers and regular folks and craftsmen got together and gave it all they had to stave off the British invasion or the great evil empire, right? It was Goliath and David, and we were, David in this situation, and through fortitude and all these other things, we came out triumphant. It's so much more political things that were going on, so much more economic things that were going. It was what wars classically are made up of now. It's convenient to say that the war here and there is over religion or territory, but it's over oil. It's over, you know what I'm saying? It's over. It's so many things that are motivating these conflicts that are beyond what we're being told. And if you're just a regular person, you just eating what you fed. And this is taking the veil off and saying, hey, you didn't realize what you were consuming. It's kind of like people don't want to know what's in a hot dog, right? Hot dog is good. I was just gonna eat the hot dog. You start telling me all the hooves and all this shit in there. I don't want that. I don't want
I
to
don't
know
want to
that.
eat that.
Ignorance is
No,
bliss.
I don't want, exactly. Ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is bliss. There's
That's
no
what it is,
question.
bro.
But here's the thing. You said a lot of great stuff, my friend. And sometimes, that last line, last phrase, ignorance is bliss. And
Yeah.
some people want to live with that, right?
Yeah,
But to be
absolutely.
fair though, see where I still struggle, even what you said, victors, they write I get all that, right?
Mhm, mhm,
But people are calling it woke because he's talking about the Native Americans.
mhm.
He should bring it up one time, but why he keep bringing it up? Okay, they said George Washington has slaves. Okay, they said it one time. Why do they keep bringing it up? Okay, and then some of the other. So that's the issue. Okay, that's the issue, right? And at the end of the day. And I remember I was watching this thing. Somebody said this, and he made someone say, "You cannot take out the Native Americans
Nope.
or the African American people that were slaves out of they're one of the core issues."
Absolutely.
Okay, see, and that's what people don't want to know. They don't want that. They want them to be going back to the hot dog. They want them to be the sauerkraut.
Right.
They want
Right.
them to be the coleslaw. They want to be the mustard. So you can say, I don't want to deal with that. I don't like coleslaw.
Right.
I don't like sauerkraut. I don't like mustard, but I still want the hot dog, right? And at the end of the day, I'm sorry. These ain't separate, things. This is all made up in the hot dog. Okay.
Absolutely.
And that's the part where people, and see what happens, man, is when you tell people, and look, we can make this as simple as, your mother and father told you, or your mother told you that this is your daddy.
Right.
Okay, and you grow up believing, this is your mother, or we came from this, or we was that, or whatever the case may be, and then you believe that, and then all of a sudden somebody take the scab off.
Yep.
And great aunt Jenny show up, and she starts telling, "Well, that ain't your daddy."
That's the Thanksgiving I'm talking
That's
about.
the Thanksgiving dinner, right? That ain't your daddy, and she's saying it because she mad.
Right.
She ain't saying it like, I want you to know the truth. She's just mad. Well, I'm telling her now. That ain't even you. And then all of a sudden you find out you live in a lie. And and here's the thing. When we say lie, maybe I'm making it a little strong. But you find out that what you believed is not 100% factually correct.
Right.
So it's not living a lie. It's just more to the story, okay, that you were told, okay? And so at the end of the day, people don't like that. They don't want that. And here's the thing, man. And, and sometimes we get caught up, and I get caught up. I'll say, we get caught up in what's happening today, and I can't believe what we're dealing with, and years ago it was the good old days and all that type stuff. And at the end of the day, let's be fair, nothing new is under the sun.
That's right.
Okay, and so history will show you that. That's the beauty of it. So then you can then be more grounded and not get caught up like, I can't look what they're doing here, and look what we're going backwards and all. And some of that can be true, but at the end of the day, it ain't the first time you start going backwards. Okay, it ain't the first time people come in and start trying to elbow and do this and that and this and that. You just haven't seen it as much in your lifetime, right? But at the end of the day, it's been done before in this country, right? And so it's good to know that, right? Because then you get perspective, and then you recognize that this is a period of time, right? And then when these other things happen, they were periods of time, and then eventually they got past it. Let me hear your thoughts before I dive into deeper.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so one of the things, and you said this very poignantly, is the fact that we want it to be about tea. We may want it to be about stamps or about some things. But the fact that these individuals, this subset of individual Americans, early Americans, played prominent roles. You want them to be side characters. You want them to be, you know what I'm saying, stand-ins or the extras. You want them to be extras. But they had prominent roles in why it happened.
Correct.
And that's what you weren't told. You weren't told it was about the expansion west. You weren't told it was about the slavery. You weren't told these things.
Wasn't told that, right?
So
And
you was
buddy,
given this a bill of goods, and you bought it, and now you feel betrayed because the truth is coming out.
here's the thing though. We all been see, this is where I throw it in. We all was given a bill of goods because that was a
Correct.
story that all of us was taught, to be fair, right?
Mhm, mhm,
Some people can't take it. All right. That's the
mhm.
issue. They can't take it. Right. And so at the end of the day, you're 100% right, bro. These are core issues, and they're more than one. I love what you just got finished saying. You know, people want to make it about tea because that was what we were told. And
Right,
maybe somebody told you about the stamp issue. Okay,
right, right,
maybe. All right. But outside of that, that was it. They didn't get into the expansion of but there's a million. So there was a lot of different things that brought this on. It wasn't
absolutely.
just one or two. It was a lot of different things that
Absolutely.
ignited this country, these people, to finally come together to say, let's do our own thing, right? It wasn't just tea, because everybody didn't drink tea. All right. There was tobacco. There was a million things that was happening. Go ahead, bro.
You said this, and this is amazing that it happened. But Ken Burns has said this on record. America has always been fighting itself. It's
Correct.
always been. We keep thinking it was a them against us, and we keep trying to play that narrative of divisiveness. You and I talk about this constantly: divide and conquer, divide and conquer. It's always been that
Buddy.
way. We've been fighting each other for centuries, literally.
But you wouldn't know that
Right.
unless you dive into history. You
That's
see my
right.
point here? That's why history, the real truth, is important. So you know, so then you get perspective. Then you're like, you know what? Okay, yeah, we're in a bad time, at least from my perspective. Okay, because some people are like, hey, what are you talking about? It's
Yep.
good
Yep.
times, right?
Great
So
again.
I get
Great
it.
again.
And back then, it was the same time. You had the loyalists like, what are you talking about? We're good. We don't need to break off and start our own. So that's always been the case. That will all. So, but sometimes we are in something and we think, oh my God, yeah, this is the worst times we're going in. And then when you learn history, you see that this happens all the time. It's over and over. Like you said, we're always fighting ourselves. And then, you know, like in the Bible, this is 7 years of harvest, 7 years of famine, right?
Yep.
At the end of the day, there's going to be good times. There's going to be bad. There's going to be times where everything's going cool and something happens. But that's part of life. That's the evolution, right? You ain't going to never keep it where it's stagnant. It's always going to stay the same, right? And so, and no matter what perspective you view, right? And so that's why I enjoy history, because it helps me stay grounded. It helps me stop, you know, getting ready to jump off a cliff or going too far. And when I say jump off the cliff, thinking that this is the wildest times in the world, right?
Right.
And at the end of the day, it's not. It's a wild time based on my life. Okay, based on what I've seen, right? But it ain't the wild. In this country has dealt with 1,000 things and different leaders and stuff to that nature.
Right.
Thoughts, and then I'm gonna play this quick little clip.
No, it's just like you said, this has been a repeat pattern. The only thing that has been consistent is the divisiveness. The only thing that's been consistent is the
That's so
fighting.
true.
And unfortunately, I don't know about the time as a historian even where there was a lull. You know what? You famously said after 9/11, that was probably
That was probably
perceived
in my
as
life.
the time
In my
where,
life.
or maybe when the guys came home from World War One, not two, not Vietnam, not Korea, but when the guys came home from one, it was a lot of kumbaya because that's when, you know, women had started to work and some of the liberation stuff started. But once again, small times in 200 years, a
Buddy,
few times in 200 years, we
right.
was cool.
I think when we got bombed by the Japanese, that brought
Okay,
people together.
okay,
Okay. So
okay.
just like they bombed. So I think, so there's times that
Yeah,
stuff happens
yeah,
that brings people together.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
But outside of that, to your point,
yeah.
right? Outside of that, it doesn't. And to be fair, listen, matter of fact, I just had an epiphany based on what we're talking about. What's the linchpin to those things where Americans come together?
Oh, the Americans experience tragedy.
The
The real
war.
Americans, right? The war, right? The
War.
real Americans, right?
War.
The ones that stirring
Okay.
up the
War.
bullshit get
Right.
hit and be like, wait
War.
a second.
Right. Think about it.
Remember
You
how
had
you said your
30.
guy got punched? Remember how you said your guy got punched and was like, looked at his guy and was like,
Oh
what you
yeah,
gonna do?
exactly. Like, what you gonna help me, right? Motherfucker, you gotta
Nope.
throw a punch.
And look,
Right.
the Americans got punched And then they looked around, where's my people at?
Where my
We
people,
all in
buddy,
this. We're all in
buddy,
this because I
flat
got
out.
punched.
And people need to understand that, right? And see, here's the thing: the 13 American colonies wasn't all in unison until this happened. It was every man for himself. All right. And so, but that's not the narrative that that was told to us. Right.
Absolutely.
And so at the end of the day, we have to recognize that we need to be more mature, and we have to be open to listening and learning from history. It's our history. What does history stand for? His story. Okay? It's our history. And it makes us better human beings. The good, the bad, the ugly, what the case may be. There's what's the word I want to use? Not revelation. There is a release when you finally get to learn everything. Like finally, you find out your daddy he ain't your daddy, or whatever the case may be, right? Yeah, there's some trauma to that maybe in the beginning, but at the end of the day, it should make you feel better to understand that, yeah, maybe he isn't your daddy, but there was a lot of nuances to what happened.
Absolutely.
Right? And it wasn't a one thing act, right?
Absolutely.
It was a lot of nuances. So when you learn all the nuances, then you're like, oh, well, I can understand. If I was in that position, then I would think, that's where we need to be, right? And so it doesn't diminish what a person is today. It doesn't diminish what you think is, I'm going to lose my superiority, whatever the word is. I can't pronounce it right now, right?
Yeah,
superiority, right? Because they're showing that, we wasn't, buddy, then you were already living in a dream world anyway, okay? To be fair. Right. And so if history decreases your thought of you being superior, then you would live in a lot. Now you're living a lot. Okay. You're living that anyway. But here's the thing though, bro. I want to dive into these things because here's a couple of things, right, that I wanted to share today to show you why people are uncomfortable about really learning it right here, right? People say it's woke. Really what they're saying is, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to learn it. Anytime you hear somebody say that's woke, that means I don't want to hear that. I don't want to learn it, right? And so at the end of the day, history is supposed to challenge you, not comfort you. You may not like it, but the facts are the facts, right? And you got to be okay with the facts. So here, let me just play this. Here's one of the reasons. Now, let's be fair. You grew up in Peoria, Illinois.
Yes,
I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. When you heard, I know you're a historian, but just be fair. When you were a kid, when they said, who fought the Revolutionary War? What type of people? Not what you know now, but when a kid, what type of people did they tell you fought the Revolutionary War?
It was the colonist farmers against the British evil empire.
Exactly, right? It was the people with money because they were holding their money, holding their yards, right? So let's get a sense here of who the real people were. Right. The other thing too, well, let's put it this way. Let's play the clip and then we'll go from there. This is directly from Ken Burns' American Revolution documentary. This is I think out of episode 4.
These soldiers were different from the men who had rallied after Lexington and Concord. Most of them had been farmers and artisans, propertied men with taxes to pay, creditors to appease, crops to sow and harvest. From now on, the Continental Army would be made up predominantly of the poorest of the poor, jobless laborers and landless tenants, second and third sons without hope of an inheritance, debtors and British deserters, indentured servants and apprentices, felons hoping to win pardons for their service, immigrants from Ireland and immigrants from Germany, or their descendants who had never learned English. Thousands of African Americans, enslaved and free, served alongside whites in units from New England all the way south to Georgia. Some volunteered, some were drafted. Many stood in for their gun-shy enslavers. Connecticut and Rhode Island would later promise enslaved recruits their freedom when the war ended. From 1777 onward, the American Revolution, begun in part to defend the interests of property owners, would be fought mostly by men who owned little or no property at all.
It was, in essence, a war fought on IOUs. It was a situation where the people that you needed to do the work, the dirty work, it for the benefit of those who wanted to be up in the big house and all this and in the comforts of what they had established, sent folks out on IOUs, because you have to think about, at that time, some people came over as indentured servants. You basically, what that is you work on my land for 4-year contract,
whatever your
and
contract,
and then I pay off your passage to the boat that you took, or I give you a little bit of land in the back to do your own with your family, or whatever the case may be. But it was always up front, and then they would, like, kind of now they hold passports, right? They would cheat and steal, and all of a sudden something, no, that you thinking different. You didn't come here 2 years ago, you came here 1 year ago, and all that kind of stuff is going on. But the moral of that scene there was the war was fought on IOUs. And I know a lot of you are thinking, wait a second, if that was the case, how did we then end up in a situation where we still had such prolific slavery and such prolific things thereafter? Well, all the kind of like with the new regime and what your lady called the orange clown, a lot of them debts didn't get fulfilled after the fact. But moral of the story, it wasn't, all these heroic figures, the Benjamin Franklins and all these guys, and everything wasn't, like we were told it was, with all these seasoned soldiers who were fighting. To be fair, though, like you say, they were fighting seasoned soldiers from the British. They were fighting regiments and colonels and battalions and things. These were just regular guys that took up arms. Right. And that is some of the majesty, but that is the part that they do want to glorify. To say it was the average Joe made a difference, but they didn't say who all the Joes were.
Right. Here's the thing, though, bro. And again, maybe it's me, maybe because maybe I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. They didn't say that Irish people were fighting in the American Revolution. No. They didn't say German people were fighting in the American Revolution. I mean, I figured it out later on in life, but they didn't grow up and say, they didn't say black people were part of fighting in the American Revolution, right? So what does that say? That says that the American Revolution was fought also by immigrants.
By immigrants, absolutely.
Okay? See, that's the point, Chris. Okay, absolutely. I get the in debt stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that. This is the point people don't want to know. That it wasn't fought by just Paul Revere and pure white bread. It was fought by immigrants that came here and fought the American. It was part of fighting the American Revolution to make this country free, to establish a country. People don't want to hear that. That's the issue. Okay? That's the issue. Buddy, that is the issue. I've been told that it was, Joe Blow and this and that, and is, pure 100%. We had, what's her name? Remember my man Rami Swami, whatever his name is, the guy who ran for, right? And remember Ohio he was governor.
He ran for governor of Ohio.
Yeah, but Vivek.
Yeah, but he was high up in and they kicked him out. And then he ran for governor of Ohio after that.
Okay, but what I'm saying, he had what was her name? Ann Coulter on his show.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
And she was saying, hey, I wouldn't have voted for you because you're Indian, right?
That's right.
But the point I want to make, she brought up saying, hey, I want to make sure that anybody that is running for president, their blood goes all the way back to England, to pure blood, because that's what started. And you see my point here. That's a narrative, right? This was only British people. These are British people. We fought here. Their blood and this and that. And that ain't true. Yeah. Right? There were German people, Irish people, black people, Native Americans that fought on, there were black people fought on both sides. They fought for the British and they fought for the colonists, all right, the patriots. Then you had the Native Americans fought for the British, and then they fought for. So it was a mix. Then you had loyalists. You had some people who were like, "What are we doing?" And then so they were fighting, and then you had the patriots, buddy. So you had this mixture.
Just melting
of
pot.
people. Melting
Absolutely.
pot. Thank you.
Yes.
They don't want to hear that. That's
No.
the point, Chris. Forget the debt stuff. I get the debt stuff.
Yep.
It's the immigrant stuff
Yeah,
because that goes against everything that they've been told.
So interestingly enough, and it is no more, but when I was young, growing up in Peoria, we got off of school for Kazimierz Pulaski Day. Guy named he was a Polish count that fought in the American Revolution. It was a Polish guy that had he was from Poland, and there's a large Polish community in Chicago. So I'm saying this to say it's not celebrated any longer because so many things have changed. But it took for a community to say, no, we want recognition, and damn it, we're going to have it. And then they acquiesced. And so even a kid like me, little black boy, knew about Kazimierz Pulaski because of where I was from. Like you said, maybe it was different in Massachusetts. Maybe it was different here. It's an American story, but it's being told separately, depending on where you are. Now we're trying to rewrite or whitewash the American story.
Flat out.
So these things that even if it was here or there being celebrated or acknowledged, they like, no, we want a standard of whiteness, a standard of European lineage that goes to all the celebrated things that have happened in this country.
There's
if
no
bad
question.
stuff, you got it. If it's good
There's
stuff,
no
it's
question.
ours.
So if they kept that out, if Ken Burns would have kept that out, nobody would be saying it was woke.
Right.
Nobody would have said that, right? If they would have kept that out. But you can't keep that out because that's part of the fact that that's not a side piece. That's not a co-star. You know what I'm saying? They are part of it, right? Now, let me ask you this. You said something I want to go to real quick. You said the expansion out west. So you said the expansion out west. Speak a little bit about that. What was one of the issues?
One of the issues was the colonists or the people that was making the money wanted the fur trade to expand. They wanted to move further into the Native American territories. The king did not want to support that. That wasn't what we was here for. Y'all said y'all were there for religious freedoms and all this stuff. Now y'all getting cute.
So stop right there.
Okay.
The 99% of people don't know that. They have no clue.
Okay.
None. Go ahead. Keep talking.
So when they wanted that, they were saying, hey, we want you to finance us moving forward and give us arms and give us things to take over these territories of the people that were already here. And he didn't want that. He was like, no, I'm good on that. And they were like, no, we're going to do that. And when he said no, they threw tantrums and you get a revolution.
And that was one of the issues. It wasn't just the tea.
Yeah.
It was one of the issues among many issues, but that was one of them because they wanted to expand west.
That's right.
Okay? And the king said no. Because at the end of the day, we're having too many fights and people dying, and let's leave the Native Americans alone. That's their land. We've taken this. Let's leave it alone. And they were like, no, we want to move west. Here's the thing, though, too. Back to your point in terms of using, we said debt. Using debt and stuff to that nature to pay off. Let's see in terms of how else they entice people to sign up in the military.
Most of Washington's new recruits signed on for 3 years and a $10 bonus. But those who signed up for the duration of the war were promised a $20 bonus and 100 free acres of Indian land when the war was over.
When we think about what was offered to the Continental soldier, Indian land at the end of it all, that land hasn't been taken, ceded, bought. That land is still Indian land, right? It tells you that the entire revolution is premised on the future possibility.
Flat out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Flat out. All right, so think about it for a second. We gonna get Chris Reed. We want you to sign up. If you sign up for 2 years, we give you $10.
GI Bill. Yeah, they gave
bonus,
you the GI Bill. Yep.
Right? But if you sign up for the duration, we're gonna give you a $20 bonus. Plus, we're gonna give you 100 acres of free Indian land that they haven't even taken yet. See what I'm saying? So their plan all along is we win this war, we're moving west.
Absolutely.
Okay, and look, is that like, oh, they're trying to look, I get it. If you want to come in, you want to conquer something, you're going to take it. You definitely have plans to do it, but don't, because that story wasn't told. And it's a true story. Okay. And it's part of the reason, one of the reasons, not the, there is multiple reasons why they sparked this revolution sparked, to be fair, but that's one of them. Okay. And people don't know that, so they don't want to hear that.
Mhm. But even when you talk about the inconsistencies in the death toll of the colonists, they don't include when they fought the second incursion trying to take over the properties that were promised to them. So one of the things that marks the expansion westward is we didn't have a standing army. These were
Correct.
militias.
They were militia.
So in order for you to think about, if you go a little further in history, the conflict with the Native American tribes was because we had to establish standing armies to actually push forward and protect the settlers, and because we were
Correct.
taking they were taking what wasn't theirs, but it was
Correct.
always the play. But
It was the play.
so let's just say this, Tony. I get the GI Bill, the first GI Bill, $10. Then I get the second kicker because I fought the whole time, or the $20 GI kicker. But then I have to go fight for what you told me I could have.
Now,
Like,
for
it was-
free. For free.
Yeah.
100 acre. Think about, see, again, 100 acres. That ain't,
Like, man,
that's
crazy.
nothing to sneeze at, right? And land is money. Okay. So when you're telling people that you're gonna give them 100 acres
Yeah.
of Indian land for free.
Yep.
They haven't even taken the land yet.
Yep.
How do you put your point? Where do you make sure that, your stuff ain't, is it a line of people standing up? Like, we took this 100, it goes to Chris Reed. You got to wait for the
Calling
next 100.
dibs. Yeah, people calling dibs. Yeah.
Right. So when do I get mine? What's the pecking order here, right?
Man.
But it don't matter, because in their mind, there's and let's be fair though too, because look at the country. They were just on the coast. So
That's right.
there's millions of acres.
Millions of-
So we can
absolutely.
we can divvy this up. 100 acres, you kidding me? We can divvy this up because we're gonna move there anyway. And look, again, these are facts.
Yep.
Right? And that's not woke. That's a fact. If you want to learn if you want to learn 2 + 2 = 4, that's what this is. Right? And at the end of the day, for people to get upset about it, to be honest, man, because people don't want the truth. And let's be clear too. Is this the only time people didn't want the truth?
Not at all.
No,
Not at
of
all.
course
The
not.
ignorance is bliss thing. Absolutely.
Ignorance
Back
is
to the
bliss.
ignorance is bliss.
In the 1800s, they didn't want to hear that. They didn't want to hear it. People want to live. And so, and look, buddy, you Six Sigma, we talk about change management. Talk a little bit real quick before we go to the next segment. What's some of the issues when people are set in their ways, and then you're trying to change? Do you want them to change and do something different? What's some of the issues that happen from a human
one of the
being
things-
standpoint?
From human, so we're naturally resistant to change. You have to be open-minded. One of the things you were talking about when you say, "Hey, this is your dad," and this, that, and you start being unveiling the truth, people have to be receptive to the new reality. The problem is everybody wants to grow, but nobody wants to change, and that's oxymoronic. Can't have growth without change. It's just
Right.
can't evolve without change. But in the idea of when confronted with the change, there's called a backfire effect, where individuals will double and triple down on a known falsehood because they're not willing to accept the reality that they didn't create, or that they did, or doesn't align directly with what they perceived or their bias. If you change something to somebody's bias, they're cool with it. Once you
Right.
start changing something and it doesn't put them in a positive light, or it doesn't, work in the right way. I remember doing a paper one time on the Industrial Revolution, one of the greatest evolutions in mankind. But child labor was out of control. Kids was dying left and right, Tony. Kids was dying left and right. But don't bring that up. Why are
Don't
you
bring-
Why are
You
you
get
bringing
mad.
these
Yeah,
maimed
you get
kids,
mad.
these maimed and dismembered children? That is not what we're here for. Sir, we're here to talk about the Industrial Revolution. That sounds poetic. That sounds majestic.
Oh,
But
man.
no, don't bring that up. We talked about. I
You're
remember
woke
doing.
now. You're woke.
Man, it's
You
too
woke.
woke. It's
too
too
woke.
woke. But that's
I
the
don't want to
fact.
hear that. I don't want to hear it. Anytime somebody says it's woke, that means I don't want to hear it. Right?
Right,
Goes
correct.
against what I've been taught. Too much change for me. Right? Even though
Absolutely.
it's the truth. Even though it's
Absolutely.
the truth. I don't want to hear it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It used to be, even in the slave times, anybody that could stand upright needed to be out there in that field. If once you would try to hold off on your kid being able to walk, because as soon as they seen that he or she could walk, he needs to be getting the stuff on the low vine. He needs to be getting stuff. He or she needs to be, teach them how to grab the low hanging things. You know what I mean? That's just the nature of how we've come across as cruel and unusual to those who have been marginalized. But it is what it, like you said, Tony.
But it's
the
human
facts
nature,
is
buddy.
the facts.
Facts are the facts.
They're agnostic. They're agnostic.
They're agnostic.
So,
They're not picking. It doesn't take away from George Washington.
right.
It doesn't take away from John Adams.
Right.
It doesn't take away from all those individuals that were Benjamin Franklin. You can name them. All the individuals that were prominent in the American Revolution. It doesn't take anything away from them.
Yep.
Okay? So you can still have your heroes, and let's be fair, there are heroes. They're everybody's hero because they helped founded the country. But at the end of the day, it was more than them.
Right.
Okay, and there's more of a story than them.
Right.
All right, and so if we're gonna tell the story, tell the whole story, right?
The problem with the story being told at this point is not necessarily even the credit or reparations or anything like that. It's the fact that if you know that the country was founded on inequality, if you know that the lands were stolen or appropriated, if you acknowledge
That immigrants
acknowledge
the immigrants help free the country. They
Yes.
fought for this country, and they wasn't even from here.
Absolutely. But if you accept and know that, it diminishes your current position. And
Here's the
that's
thing.
why they're going to fight tooth and nail. Because it dismantles their position.
But buddy, that's the superiority part. That's the part, right? Is that you think you're superior based on this, and then when you find out that it's not all that, and and it's just not. And if you think that your superiority is based on this, then you're lost anyway. To be honest,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You got that's more of a problem than the history lesson.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
You have a definitely mindset problem. But here's the thing, though, bro. Like I said earlier, I didn't want to go here, man, because I'm tired of talking about these dudes. It was like I said, it's like a cartoon, though, right? So now we got the White House, and look, let's let the story play out for itself, and then let's hear thoughts.
Months of deadly boat strikes near Venezuela. Tonight, President Trump is meeting with his national security team. It comes as Congress is demanding answers about this attack on September 2nd. The Trump administration now confirms it hit an alleged drug boat not once but twice. The second strike ordered after the first failed to kill everyone on board. A U.S. official and a source familiar with the Pentagon's actions tell NBC News.
Does the administration deny that second strike happened, or did it happen and the administration denies that Secretary Hegseth gave the order?
The latter is true, Abe. Secretary Hegseth authorized Admiral Bradley to conduct these kinetic strikes. Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law.
Admiral Frank Bradley is overseeing the U.S. military operations in the region, which have killed more than 80 people, despite the administration providing no evidence illegal drugs were on all the boats. Yesterday, the president downplayed concerns about a second strike.
We'll look into it, but no, I wouldn't have wanted that, not a second strike.
Now, Democrats are questioning whether the targeting of incapacitated survivors is a war crime. Even some Republicans are promising investigations. And Admiral Bradley is expected in Washington this week to speak with senior lawmakers, according to two people familiar with the matter.
We're going to try to get to the facts.
While the U.S. accuses Venezuela's authoritarian leader, Nicolas Maduro, of drug trafficking, which he denies, Trump is pardoning Honduras's former president, Juan Orlando Hernandez, a convicted drug trafficker, who U.S. prosecutors had said accepted a $1 million bribe from El Chapo. Today, we pressed the White House on the difference between the two leaders.
The people of Honduras have highlighted to him how the former President Hernandez was set up.
All right, Gabe, let's go back to that strike on those survivors. You point out lawmakers, including Republicans, are talking of a possible war crime here. What do legal experts say?
Well, Tom, some legal experts say targeting survivors of an initial attack who cannot defend themselves is a war crime. Now, the U.S. is not at war with Venezuela, but the White House insists that it's designated the drug smugglers as foreign terrorist organizations. So defending the U.S. from deadly narcotics justifies the airstrikes.
Judge, jury, and executioner, baby. Like, hey, I assume or presume that something's going on. I'm leaving no look, you know this from all the movies you've watched. Leave no witnesses. We're not letting nobody tell another side of the story. Everything. The one thing that they did right in that was they said alleged. Because we have no idea. They destroyed everything, Tony, including the people. They
But here's the
destroyed
thing.
everything, including the people. You can't do that to other people's people.
But here's
That's
the
a
thing.
war crime.
It is, but here's the thing. These guys change this shit up as it goes, right? And so you want to get rid of one president because he's sending drugs to the country. Then you pardon another one. And if you read the story about the dude that they pardoned, he got 45 years. They caught him with like tons of cocaine, all different type of stuff. They had the goods on him. His brother was part of the cartel, and then they use the line that says, "Oh, he was set up."
Extenuating circumstances.
Bro, it's just like so there's no strategy, right? And let's go back to the thing though. So Hexet, when they reached, Washington Post, let's give them the credit here because they're the one that broke this story a couple of days ago. And evidently, Hexet first said there wasn't a second. He watched it. There wasn't a second strike. So he talked about that. Then the president said, well, wait a minute. He said that, first he said, Hexet said, there wasn't a second strike. Then the president says, oh yeah, they did this, but Hexet says it wasn't a second strike. Then they changed. Then Hexet says, Hexet said, I watched the whole thing. That's what he said. I watched the whole thing. There wasn't a second strike, right? Then they change, and then Hexet says, oh yeah, I watched it, but when the second strike happened, I walked out of the room. And then first they were talking about the admiral wasn't the one that gave the order. Hexet gave the order and said, kill them all. All right. Now he wasn't even in the room. He didn't say, now they fall on your sword. The admiral, Hexet was in the room, but really it was the admiral, and he did everything he did nothing wrong. So, they're trying to back him. But at the end of the day, now they got the admiral coming to Congress buddy, this is all here's number one. You got an unqualified Secretary of Defense who doesn't know anything about the rules of engagement. Okay? Flat out. Number two, anything today, these guys, and again, you got to give them credit. Anything, they can label anything now a terrorist.
Yes.
All right. When was drug cartel terrorists? Right. Yep. But because they can label it, that means we can attack it. You see what I'm saying? So they're making up stuff along the way. All right. To justify what they want to do. Okay. Yep. And then number three. Okay. So now if you label them terrorists, then we're at war with them. Yep. All right. So if that's the case, then it is a war crime. Right. But now the Secretary of Defense ain't had nothing to do with it. It was the admiral. So, buddy, it's just all over the place. And then, number one, you're going after drug boats. Okay. But at the end of the day, who knows? What evidence? What do you see? What are you coming back with to say? See this?
The weapons of mass destruction all over again.
You just bombing. And look, maybe you are, but you don't have no evidence. Nothing that this is this is that. You're just making it up. They were drug cartels. Now they're terrorists. So that means I can go and attack them. So, buddy, that's why I'm saying it's a what's that old saying? It's a Keystone Cops, whatever it is.
Keystone Cops.
Keystone Cops. This is what they did. They just make it up as they go.
Yeah. But if I were to, it's not a far reach. If I were to tell you that a convicted felon lies, you would say, yeah, that makes sense. That would resonate with you. Lies. And if I was to tell you that a 37-time convicted felon lies habitually, you would say, yeah, that sounds about right. The idea of being able to do it, regardless of all these other things, Tony, and the morality of it and this, that, is anti-American. It's anti-American to execute people without due process, period. Let's start there, stop there, okay? Now, it's even more egregious to kill foreign nationals that aren't on American soil. Like, they're not letting them get past the Mason-Dixon line. They're not letting them get past. They're going away. Now we're defending means defending. It's offensive to go over there and kill people.
Buddy, and then what? In the Pacific Ocean?
What do we do? So once again, unfortunately, where we're missing the mark here is I need to see the trickle down effect of these activities and how it actually, somebody on a show that we done talked about defending the borders or securing the borders. And I said, where's the evidence of this? How's that worked into the economy? How's that worked into the way of life of individuals? Who has said from a polling perspective, I feel more secure because of all these people being infringed upon, and it's Latin people, right? Let's just keep it real. Even with this, for whatever reason, if you got an olive colored hue and dark hair, you can get it. Like, we're not your friends. And that's a horrible, from what we started with the last segment. This was all a melting pot, and people came from everywhere. Now you're segmenting out, and you're making people bad guys based off of assumptions, innuendo, and racial profiling or cultural profiling. And that's just bad.
And not only that, your spouses are immigrants.
Well, yep.
Okay? Let's be fair.
The
Trump's
irony.
spouse is an immigrant.
You didn't have to do that. You didn't have to
What's
do that.
his name? What's the dude's name?
JD Vance. JD
His
Vance
wife is an immigrant.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay? So buddy, you know, and so it's just, the hypocrisy is so high, right? But we're talking about truth here, man.
Yep.
And so nobody wants the real truth when it comes to the American Revolution. They want a watered down version so they can feel good about themselves. And then nobody's telling the truth when it comes to this situation, because they feel that they're powerful and they can do whatever they want to do. And then that people will just follow along and say, oh, here we go again. They're going after 47 because of this. They won't give them a break. And just as ignorant and have no clue, right, about what facts are and what really rules of engagement are. And at the end of the day, you would want, if you were being accused of something, you would want the prosecutor to say, what are you talking about? Show me what I've done wrong. Where's the evidence that I've done anything? You will be screaming and hollering. You will be reciting, you know, what's the old saying here? How's it go? Not guilty until proven not guilty until proven
innocent until proven guilty.
Innocent until proven guilty. Thank you. You'll be screaming that. Yeah. I'm innocent. Wait, what type of country is this? Well, I thought it was all about innocent until proven guilty. Where's the fact? Where's this? So if this was happening to you, you would be screaming. But because it's happening somewhere else, right, to some other people, and they're telling you without showing you no evidence, they're drug smugglers, and we're gonna kill them, right? And you're okay with that, right? I mean, but you wouldn't be okay with that if this was happening to you and your family. That's where, you see my point here, buddy?
So the biggest part about this, and we know this because we live this, the lack of the ability or the desire to de-escalate. If you have the power to bomb someone or missile attack someone, you damn sure got the power to pull up on them and arrest them.
Buddy, flat out. Wouldn't you go ducks, right? And then have all your guns and stuff there ready, right? But you're going to blow them out of the water. I mean,
that's terrorism. But that in itself is terrorism. Let's just keep it real. Look, come on, fam.
Bruh,
if this was the other way around,
if it was the other way around, buddy, if it was the other way around, we ready to go to war. All right. Yeah. If we had boats that were going from here to whatever, and they were big, and there was sugar in them, right? And then Venezuela or Argentina or whatever started bombing them, saying, "Hell no, there's drugs in those. They ain't sugar cane." We'll be like, "What the hell?" With no, we'd be ready to fight.
Absolutely.
Fight. But here, it's okay. It's okay. And so don't talk to me about law and order. Don't talk to me about truth, buddy, because at the end of the day, people are doing what they want to do. Okay. And then they're using any excuse to be able to say, this is why we did it. We're saving the country from this and that. And then not only that, you're going after a country leader saying that he's this and that. And look, maybe he is. I'm not going to. I know some people in Venezuela, people down in Miami, I think this has the biggest population of Venezuelan people. They said the dude is no good. So, hey, look, maybe he's not. Okay, so I'm not saying, Fidel Castro.
Trump is no good. What are we talking about?
But my point is, but then you're letting somebody else go, pardoning them for the same stuff.
Absolutely.
Right. And then making up saying he was set up where his brother and everybody, it's just, and that's the problem, man. And then they can just throw anything out and then they expect people to buy it. Okay, and here's the
Where we
thing.
live in.
Here's the thing. Some of their followers buy it. Whatever
Absolutely.
they say, they buy. They don't question. They don't like. Doesn't that Doesn't that sounds a little fishy, doesn't it? No, I mean you would just reason, just regular reasoning. That don't sound right, right? But at the end of the day, it's okay. So when you feel you got followers that listen and do everything you tell them, then you can do what you want to do. Final thoughts, my brother.
Status. That occult status. My final thought is that occult status or the Trumpeteers that follow this situation are the same people that their skin doesn't crawl when he says crooked Hillary. When he says Barack Obama needs to be arrested. Like, what are we talking? You were legally convicted in a United States court of law, and then you immediately come out and say the judge was crooked, the game is foul, and the refs is dirty. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are we talking about?
Right.
But when you let somebody condition you that is, if anything comes out and it's not aligned with your narrative, it's fake, and the people are against it, it's a witch hunt, it's this, that. When you are able to massage that propaganda and people go all in and send money and buy watches and it's ridiculous.
The Trump perfume,
so crazy,
right?
Man,
he's milking you while he's lying to you.
Yep. And no matter what the fact is, because it's not your fact, you say okay. But the moment when it's not your fact, it's woke. When the moment is not your fact, it's anti-American. When the moment is not your fact, it's leftist kind of, radical.
They've been
radicalized with all these
radicalized.
adjectives. Man.
They've been radicalized.
It's sad, bro.
Buddy, you make a great point. And I just wanted to, Sal, I want to throw
What's
up
up, Sal?
Sal's my man. Sal, what's up, bro? Sal says they're all not taking responsibility, throwing each other the butt. Buddy, that's what they do, right? And at the end of the day, they expect people to buy it, right? And then what Sal says here is, he says, watch Trump movie, The Apprentice, deny and lie. That Donald was thought that he was with that mindset, right? Yeah, and so, absolutely. Buddy, when you, and not only that, you got to give it to him. He look you in the eye and say, yeah, I lied to them and they'll believe me anyway. And they do. So when you, buddy, come on, stop. So that's where I'm just saying, when you think that you can do anything, and you know for a fact your supporters will, no matter what you say, no matter what happens, they'll be 100% behind, then that's cult-like, right? You can't think for yourself. But listen, bro, here's the thing. I'm grateful for you. And what I want to leave as we close out is that, look, guys, ladies, Americans, whoever's watching, Indians, Cubans, people in Germany, South Africa, Poland, you watching the Black Executive Perspective podcast. We ask everyone, and Chris, you did a really great job in talking about the mindset of how change is difficult, right? And people, they don't want to change. They want to live by what and I get all that. But at the end of the day, you have to be open to learn, continue to learn and evolve. That's how we become best. So become better than we were yesterday. Is having that, one of my favorite sayings is the mind is like an umbrella. It only works when it's open. Right? And so if people have open minds, now look, you may not like it. It may taste nasty going down your throat. And it may take a while for you to process it. But I guarantee you, after a while, it may not be immediate, but as long as that mind is open, you will start saying, you know what? This is not as bad as I thought it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And knowing the truth is it's not as bad as I thought it was.
And I think as change agents and arbiters of the truth, we do everything we can each week to help, bang that drum and cast that wide net. And we have platforms that we try to provide you the truth and hope that you at least will listen. Like all you want to do is listen and be receptive because as he said, you got to open in order to grow. Nothing grows in a comfort zone. It's not going to be comfortable, but we have these things. So as we, tune out and thank you for tuning in today. I want to remind you to check out Need to Know with Nsinga, where every week Dr. Nsinga Burton provides poignant and specific examples of everything we talk about in a very small package from a Black Executive Perspective podcast, where she talks about how we shape our community and our world, and she's on point and she's right on time, and everything is something that you should get as food for thought. So make sure that you tune in because you don't want to miss that.
Absolutely. And check out the next Pull Up, Speak Up here on a Black Executive Perspective podcast. Well, our roundtable, if you like Chris and I's perspective, you should definitely dive into the roundtable. You know, people come with all different perspectives, and that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong, you know, with everybody having something different or they think this. It's all about having a conversation and we're chatting about it, and that's how we all learn. We've had people who have one perspective and then all of a sudden they hear somebody else's perspective and they're like, wow, I never thought of it that way. So definitely check out Pull Up, Speak Up here on the Black Executive Perspective podcast.
And then we always want to leave you with our call to action, which is to incorporate less, LESS. Our goal here is to eliminate all forms of discrimination. And to achieve this, we ask for everyone to embrace less. The L stands for learn. Educate yourself on racial, cultural, international, political nuances. So therefore, you can come to your own conclusion about how things work.
And then after you learn, you have the letter E, which stands for empathy. Now, since you've learned, you can put yourself in the other people's shoes because now you have a sense of what they go through.
The first S stands for share. You want to enlighten others and don't hide it, divide it. The whole reason we're here is to share what we have with you. And we hope that every Tuesday live, you share what you have with us so we can grow collectively.
Absolutely. And the final S stands for stop. We want everyone to stop discrimination as it walks in your path. So it's simple. You heard Chris say earlier, if Aunt Jenny or Uncle Joe, even at the Thanksgiving table last week, or at your regular Sunday dinner table, if they say something that's inappropriate, you say, Aunt Jenny, Uncle Joe, we don't believe that, we don't say that, and you stop it right there. So if everyone can incorporate less, LESS, my friends, will build a more fair, more understanding world, and we all will see the change that we want to see because less will become more.
We're excited to engage with you here live every Tuesday. We want to encourage you to check out our episodes in the vault. Make sure that you put comments. You can still put comments in even after it's not live, and we'll look at those comments and try to respond or reply or put something together. But go to the website, sign up for the newsletter, the monthly perspective. It's hot off the shelves, wonderful and timely. You will love it. Make sure that you review us and let us know what you want to speak about, and then subscribe wherever you're listening. And where can they find us besides here?
My friend, they can find the Black Executive Perspective podcast, obviously here on YouTube, but Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And hey, don't forget to follow us on our social channels of LinkedIn, X, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram at a Black Exec. For my fabulous co-host, my man, the co-host with the most down in Dallas, my boy Chris P. Reed. I'm TonyTidbit. We talked about it. We learned about it. We laughed about it. We're going to continue to strive and thrive about it. Regardless, we love you, and guess what? We're out.
A Black Executive Perspective.